And Paul, you've already started the recording. Brenda or Paul, are there any announcements that you need to make at this point?
None for me, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Brenda?
No, sorry. I broke my chair somehow, but no, I don't have any announcements. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, well, let's call this meeting to order. And the first item after that is, are there any adjustments to the agenda? I'm seeing no hands. So do MPC members have any announcements for the committee? Again, I'm not seeing any hands. How about comments from the audience? Paul, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
We don't have anyone signed up to speak, Chair, and I'm just double checking the list. Everybody here is either a member or staff.
Okay. So we will dispense with that, and we're on to agenda item 5, MPC minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? And if not, is there a request for a motion of approval?
I move to approve the May 1st, 2025 MPC meeting minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Blackwell. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who seconded that.
That'd be me, Pete.
Hey, Pete. So moved by Councillor Blackwell, seconded by Board Member Knox. Let's do it the inverse way. Are there any objections? I'm not seeing any, so I'm assuming that that just passed unanimously. Okay. We're now moving on to MPO issues. The 6A is the first item on this agenda item. And so this is a regional transportation plan update. Looks like our presenters are Kelly Clark from LCOG. Kelly?
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair. Kelly Clark, I'm a principal transportation planner with the Central NPO, and here to present on the regional transportation plan. I'm going to share my screen, so if you could bear with me while I get that set up. It always takes me a minute. Okay, are we good with seeing what's on my screen here?
Yes.
Okay. So we've been coming to you on a monthly basis from the Regional Transportation Plan update, and today's presentation is focusing on the RTP's goals, vision, and objectives. And I just wanted to note that these are critical elements of the RTP as they provide the direction for all of its investments. And we've talked about the types of investments that the RTP has, from plans and programs to capital investments, operations, maintenance, preservation, and system management and programs. And we want to ensure that all of these investments are consistent with the regional vision and goals. And so this is a key component to making sure that's happening. It's key to ensuring that we're implementing investments in line with our region's needs and priorities, and that we're acting responsibly with public funding, and that also we're in line with our federal requirements. The vision, goals, and objectives are the cornerstone to the RTP's performance measures in the performance-based planning and programming framework. And our current RTP, the one that was adopted in 2020 by MPC, was the first to meet the federal legislation that was new at the time and required all metropolitan planning organizations to integrate a performance-based planning and programming framework into their long-range transportation plans. And so now fast forward 4 years, we're through this update, working towards strengthening that framework and asking the community for direction again and the regional needs and priorities, but then more explicitly linking the goals and objectives to to investments and then system performance. So today I'll be presenting the resources that we drew from to understand where are the gaps and needs, issues, and opportunities specific to the RTP goals and objectives, and then presenting recommendations for their refinement. And of course, I welcome any feedback or questions you have throughout this presentation. I may not be able to see your hands raised, so if you have a question or input for me, please just feel free to interrupt. So our recommended refinements to the vision, goals, and objectives came from several sources. The first of which was our Central Lane MPO, our agency's certification review, and this is a review that our program undertakes or is part of every 4 years by the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Authority, and out of that come several corrective actions or recommendations as those agencies see fit. And so this is an intent to address some of those. We conducted a staff evaluation of the adopted RTP and had several recommendations come from that. We've conducted a very robust public engagement effort earlier this year, and that was very informative in how we can fine-tune some of our goals and objectives. And then we conducted a project list evaluation that I'll talk about a little bit here. And we also are shifting, or we're intending to address some of the shifts that we've seen in the current federal administration. Before getting into the key takeaways from those sources, I did want to let you know that we'll be coming back to you with a more quantitative assessment of the RTP in the form of a system performance evaluation. And that's informed by our travel model and its outputs, and then our analysis of performance measures. We're currently conducting that though, and so we'll bring that back to you later this summer. And then a little bit of an overview of how we've been thinking about gaps and needs, issues and opportunities. And the gaps really are where are we needing to make some adjustments to meet our federal requirements. And those came from our certification review. And then the needs, issues, and opportunities are the other remaining 4 sources from our evaluation of the adopted RTP, public engagement, project list evaluation, and then federal direction. And that federal direction shift, we were encouraged by our FHW and FTA representatives to align with in our RTP. So that's another source of our recommendations that we're presenting today. I just wanted to touch base on some of the key takeaways from each of those sources. So the main feedback that we had during our certification review was to reinforce the connection between the plan's goals, objectives, performance measures, and project identification. So that's the impetus for us conducting the project list evaluation. We feel the need to and opportunity to address this recommendation by more explicitly discussing how we developed and how we link the goals and investments in the plan's narrative itself, and then reinforcing that language in the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program in that selection process. The second recommendation was to improve upon our financial plan, and we'll be doing this by incorporating the operations, maintenance, and preservation costs more clearly. Again, adding narrative to kind of explain some of the resources behind the financial plan, and then discussing funding shortfall implications. We'll be bringing that financial plan back to you later this summer as well. And then the third comment was the RTP lacked a system performance report. That was because, again, it was the first time we had had developed the RTP with the performance-based planning and programming framework, which does require the system performance report. So we, with this update, are integrating and developing a system performance report. And then last, strengthening that performance framework by linking performance targets with investment priorities. And this is something that we're working with in that quantitative assessment side of things that I mentioned, and we'll be bringing that to you as well. And then some of the needs, issues, and opportunities that we identified through our staff evaluation was that the RTP did not have a vision statement itself. We had the goals and objectives, but we lacked a vision statement. And so we've been working on that. And we will present that to you later in this presentation. That we could support natural resources a little bit stronger. And so we've brought some refined objective to you around that. That we could develop a transportation demand management performance measures. And with that one, we plan on better connecting to the congestion management process to show like how are we managing congestion through transportation demand management. We could better address resiliency. And so we've brought to you a refined objective around resiliency. And then the last is address data resources and analysis methods management, maintenance, and improvements. And again, this is something that we can address in our narrative of the RTP, and then working outside of the RTP to update and improve in this area. And we're working on that. Right now, the Central Aid NPO has a data portal where we show a lot of like local socioeconomic, demographic, safety related data. And we're working on evolving that into kind of a data portal 2.0 that's just as robust, but allows us more capabilities and presenting more data and our performance measures as well. And then we heard a lot from the public, which was really instrumental in guiding what we're bringing to you today as well. We've presented in past MPC meetings kind of the outline of, or the summary of our public engagement to date and the key takeaways that we heard. And now we're working on integrating that into our update here. So some of the key messages that we heard was that safety is a key issue and need. And so we can reinforce that in the narrative itself and reinforce the importance of regional safety programming. We heard that improving transit frequency and travel times is a key way to help with transit ridership. And so we'll look at ways to link our plans with lane transit districts plans and then support transit as a congestion management strategy. We heard that gaps in the active transportation networks need to be closed. And so we can reinforce the value of closing those gaps in the RTP and its narrative. Geographic barriers present barriers for especially active transportation, and so we can highlight the projects that address this issue. Asset management and improvement are a key priority, and so we can look at ways to integrate operations management preservation costs into the financial plan, which is another way to address our federal requirements. And then considering the full life of a project and the RTP itself. So it's not just build it and leave it alone, it's how do we maintain and preserve over time. And then there's ways to address data resources and analysis methods and management, maintenance and improvements. Again, looking at ways to address this in the narrative and then working outside the RTP update to improve in this area, like I've already talked about. There's a lot of public support for separated bicycle and pedestrian facilities. And we have a refined objective to address this priority. Traffic congestion and managing traffic congestion is a priority in the region. And we do have this addressed in our congestion management plan and management strategies, but we're looking at ways to link those strategies into the RTP a little bit better. And then finally, the last two are opportunities to add an objective and refine objective around protecting natural resources and the need for resilient infrastructure.
Kelly, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I know you might be covering it later in the presentation, and stop me if you are. And I know this is a sensitive issue, but as we're going through the RTP, is there an eye looking at language and how we describe things? And I'm approaching this purely from a pragmatic standpoint with the federal government pulling funding for certain things that seem to trigger responses from the federal government. I know we're dealing with some things in the city of Eugene around airport expansion right now, and I'm just curious how we are addressing that.
Yeah, you'll see in our recommendations a lot of language adjustments for the shifting federal direction. And I'll highlight those specifically and one by one a little bit later in this presentation, but it is directly and exactly what you're talking about. It's in response to what we're hearing from the federal government right now and what we've been also encouraged to take action on by our federal representatives at FHWA and FTA. And it's a strategy method, right? We want to make sure that funds are continuing to flow into our region and that we're not losing funding. That's key, and it's a key priority. And so that's the impetus for a lot of the recommendations that we'll see.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And the last kind of source for our recommendations, I guess, is this project list evaluation. And this was the first time that we've asked our partners to help us with evaluating the project list. And the intent was really to show how well it supports the region's goals. And so we did this as a way to help strengthen the plan's performance-based planning and programming framework. A couple thoughts as we've gone through this process and as we've evaluated the responses that we've gotten is that we found that since we did not provide like a definitive way to interpret the criteria or how to evaluate the projects within the criteria, we got like varied responses from our partners, which was to be expected. And so we acknowledge that this is a qualitative exercise and that going through the assessment and evaluation process and criteria in this practice, but it's a good like starting spot for us to be able to understand how to better do this. We did identify two key limitations worth noting, and we'll be refining for future RTP updates. And one is that, as we see like the percentages of projects aligning with each criterion, they're not consistent. They go from like 2% up to over 70. And this is to be expected given what the RTP is set up to do. At its core, the RTP is a long-range plan for capital transportation projects and programmatic investments. And the projects are on this list with a very kind of a high planning level descriptions and cost estimates only. And given that status, some of the criteria that TAC members were asked to evaluate projects with, such as like supporting natural resources, reducing pollution from transportation, and some others, they're kind of unknown at this early phase of project development. And so we kind of found that as a key takeaway and a good finding for us. And then the second was that evaluation criteria do not address the full like ecosystem of all of the planned transportation investments in our region, only the investments within the RTP's purview. And so the RTP is not the only source for transportation investments happening in our region. And this is important to reinforce and not underrepresent how all the pieces of transportation planning and implementation within our region fit together. And so it is helping us, as kind of key takeaways are helping us to frame future RTP investments. And an example of that would be the criterion around the use of technology to enhance system performance. The region does have another plan called the Intelligent Transportation System Plan, and it's a key tool and a key source for ITS projects that are not all on the RTP's project list. But if we had evaluated the ITS's project list, we would have had 100% of projects support this criterion. So it's not saying that the region's not doing this. It's just what is the RTP doing? And so this is a kind of an important exercise for us to be explicit in how the project list is supporting the RTP goals, but we understand that there's more out there and that we can work on refining this evaluation process. But we will be presenting out in the future the kind of the crosswalk of how these criteria do align with the RTP goals to talk about that a little bit more. So with all of that, those are the sources to guide us into what are the recommendations that we're presenting today. So I'd like to start with a proposed vision statement. To get to this vision statement, we took away as much as we could from all the public involvement. And we had an exercise in one of the public involvement methods that we used was just to ask people what is their vision for the future. And that was our starting spot. And then we developed 6 different kind of draft vision statements. We talked internally as a team, and then we brought options to our advisory committee, further refined based on their feedback. and then talked about it with the Transportation Policy Committee, which is an advisory board to the MPC. And this is the vision statement after all of that we landed on as far as a draft to bring to you. And we'd appreciate your comments and any feedback that you may have. But the statement reads, our region's multimodal transportation system supports people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds in getting where they want and need to go, and ensures efficient movement of goods. And I'll pause here. Appreciate any feedback or reaction you may have with this.
Thank you, Kelly. Questions? I see we have Vice Chair Blackwell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one observation I made when I was reading through all of the goals and objectives, and also the community feedback is safety was a reoccurring, word and theme. And I was a little surprised not to see safety in the vision statement.
That is a really good catch. We vision statements, it's a fun process. We started and we've gone in and out of all the different words that you could include, but I think that's a really good one that we should consider bringing back in. Because you're right, that's one that's a priority for this policy board, and we've heard that over since I've been at the MPO, and it was a resounding key priority from our public involvement as well.
Good catch.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Beth, anyone else? And I have a limited screen I can see, so you may have to just speak up. Okay, I think that's it. Anything else, Kelly?
I do. I'm going to actually refer to I'm going to refer to the memo that I sent in the cover or the MPC packet now. So I'm going to stop this screen share and I'm going to open up. I'm going to open up another. If I can get to it. Another document. What this document is this is the actual recommendations that I wanted to share with you today and get your feedback on what we're presenting as far as adjustments to our goals and objectives. And then this is where we'll talk a little bit more about the shifts in federal direction and how we're integrating and how we're responding to those. And so you'll see some of that as well. Are you able to see the PowerPoint on your, or I'm sorry, the PDF on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is exactly what's in your packet, but I just thought it would be the easiest way to kind of walk through the recommendations, and it's done presented to you in a way that hopefully makes sense, with strike-throughs where we're recommending removing language, underlines where we're adding language, and then a notes column here that explains why we're making the changes that we're recommending. So the first recommendation is to goal 3, which is our healthy people and environment goal. And this is the first example of a change to align with federal policy and direction. And the reason that we're suggesting this change is because greenhouse gas emissions has been one of the trigger words that we've heard from the federal government. And so we're recommending aligning with federal policy and direction by changing that to pollution. So it would state lower polluting transportation options are encouraged and pollution from transportation is reduced. And just to note, the intent, we were really conscientious about trying not to change the intent of what was adopted last RTP with our goals and objectives, but to stay in alignment with the region's priorities while understanding that there's some shifts in federal direction. So it's kind of the balance between the two. The fourth goal for the RTP is our equity goal, and this is the one that gave us the most pause, and be candid, kind of is the hardest one to try to figure out how to still mean the same thing. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that people have access, and so we have suggested calling this goal access. And it would read, the regional transportation system provides access to destinations for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds. And those are the two recommendations we have for refining our goals. And then I'll step into the objectives, and you'll see some consistency with the changes we're making here. The first objective, replacing lower carbon with the term lower polluting, in alignment with federal direction. The second objective, this is an opportunity for us to better align with what we're hearing from the public. And so we suggest adding a clause, which would now read, this objective would now read, complete gaps in regional bicycle and pedestrian networks, including paths, and with the addition of with a focus on separated facilities where feasible. And then objective 8 is another change to align with federal policy and direction by striking out, particularly for vulnerable populations. The objective would read, leverage technological advances, including intelligent transportation system solutions to increase efficiency of travel across all modes for all travelers. But it does strike out the vulnerable populations piece. Objective 11 is another change to align with federal policy and direction by striking low carbon and adding in lower pollution, lower polluting fuels, and then striking electric and hydrogen vehicles. Goal of objectives 12 has two reasons for changes here. The first is to align with federal policy and direction by striking climate change. But the second is an opportunity to align with what we've heard a lot from MPC itself and our public engagement as well. And so the objective would read, reduce the transportation system's vulnerability to natural disasters. Bridges crossing I-5 and rivers are of particular importance given the region's hospitals are on the east side of I-5. So kind of prioritizing connections to major medical centers. Goal 15, I'm sorry, objective 15 is a change to align with federal policy and direction. And we're recommending to read, address challenges experienced by people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds in meeting their travel needs. And objective 16 are, again, changes to align with federal policy and direction by striking greenhouse gas emissions as sustainable and replacing with pollution and efficient. And objective 22, striking historically excluded and replacing with low income. And these are, as we're talking about all of these alignments with federal policy and direction, these are kind of words that have been used by other NPOs and are being used by other NPOs and DOTs, Departments of Transportation, to kind of align with what's happening at the federal level. So we're not alone in this. We do recommend adding objectives 29 and 30, 29 to align with both our staff evaluation and then public input to protect natural resources. So the added objective states, design transportation improvements to support or enhance natural resources by preserving air and water quality, minimizing noise impacts and light pollution, preserving habitat connectivity, encouraging energy conservation, and incorporating stormwater management best practices. And then objective 39 is another way for us to address system resiliency by stating identify natural hazard vulnerabilities and the multimodal transportation network by prioritizing projects that avoid or mitigate infrastructure risk in hazard areas and increasing redundancy for vulnerable transportation routes. And then finally, 2 more added objectives that are a way for us to better tie in our congestion management process. The first being objective 31, which states implement the congestion management, process toolkit of strategies to address regional congestion. And we'll bring that toolkit to you at a future meeting, but really those strategies around transportation options, travel demand management, ITS, transportation systems management operations, data maintenance, kind of those ways that our region handles congestion. And then the last objective addition is reduce single occupancy vehicle demand. That's a lot. So thank you for your patience with all of that. I can stop sharing my screen now. And I'm happy to respond to any questions or thoughts you have around those recommendations.
Thank you very much for that, Kelly. Questions or comments? I'm not seeing any, but I think, oh, there, Vidal.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to say good job on that, Kelly, you and your team. I think that, again, with the light of the new administration coming in, these changes happening, and we are trying to keep funds rolling in this area, we're going through the same thing as well. And being open-minded and figuring out the best way to move forward is a tough thing right now. And good job on trying to piece that together. Me, myself, I thought about some of the things. You did a good job, or you and your team did a good job.
Thank you very much. We're all in this together, so use what you need.
Yeah. Thank you, Vidal. I agree with what Vidal said. I think you've done a phenomenal job during a interesting time. Pete Knox.
Thanks, Chair Groves. Yes, I want to just say that the LTD is also very supportive of the changes, and I personally, when I saw the list of things, I'm impressed what you guys have done in trying to keep the spirit of each goal with the changes in language. So good job on that.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Blackwell.
Yes, thank you, Kelly, for that presentation. I feel like the wordsmithing done throughout was really well done to, align with the current administration, and then also still be really clear and sticking to our goals and objectives. So well done.
Appreciate that.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment or have questions? Well, with that, thank you. Oh, Paul.
I'm sorry, Chair. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Actually, Kelly, go ahead first.
Yeah, and I appreciate all of this feedback. It's super helpful and for us to be able to move forward confidently with these recommendations. And we're not asking today for you to make any actions. That's that will come at the end of the RTP process. But we do want to acknowledge and kind of let you know that this is an important time for us to set these goals and objectives in the vision statement. Kind of put a line in the sand and say this is what we need to move forward with this plan, and that will help us to integrate all of what we've changed, these recommendations, throughout the rest of the plan and into other pieces of it that we're working on, and it will help us to conduct our call for projects for the actual implementation of projects. And so it's an important time for us to kind of get your feedback here, and I appreciate what I've heard, and I feel confident moving forward with kind of what we've presented here. So thank you.
Great. Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to partly say what Kelly just said, which is we do need the feedback because we need to move ahead with modeling and other analysis based on these goals, and even the vision statement is important. I think we can easily, and it's a good suggestion. As Kelly said, we've had many variations of the vision statement. We had words come in, words go out. But I think it's very easy for us to add in the word safe. I would suggest putting it right before getting where they want to go. So basically saying that it supports people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds in safely getting where they want and need to go. Very simple, very appropriate. I did want to note, based on the comment from Chair Groves and some other comments, that the federal landscape is still changing. Sure. We had been keeping very close eye on, for instance, just our contract that we've been waiting for our federal funds, because we had heard that some federal contracts were getting new requirements and new restrictions put in. Happy to say that we received it earlier this week, and it was unchanged from previous years with no new federal language or restrictions. That was followed up, interestingly, and some of this is good news, some of this is not so good news. It was followed up by what has happened over just the past couple of days with the administration and USDOT deciding to suspend implementation of a lot of the current. Excuse me, just a minute.
Brad Albee, could you mute, please? Thank you.
I just muted. Thank you. I just muted him.
Okay.
The USDOT has suspended or ended further implementation of a number of provisions in the current or most recent transportation package. These were things from the IIJA that still had not been fully implemented via rulemaking and other measures. And the administration has decided to end them. A number of them affect the MPOs in ways that we don't need to go into now. But I think the most telling statement in what was put out was that they are looking to implement the administration's priorities in the new transportation package due by 2027. So, as I started with, there's still a lot that we may see happening.
Thank you very much. I think this concludes 6A unless there's anything else, and I'm not seeing any. So let's move on to 6B, which is Safe Routes to School and School Report. And Megan Scholl will lead off and be joined by Brad Albee and Sarah Mazzi, who are Safe Routes to School coordinators.
Chair. As you noted, my name is Megan Scholl, and I am housed at LCOG. I have been the Rural Safe Routes School Coordinator, and I support the Metro Safe Routes School program, which is the content of this presentation. I'm going to keep it brief and let Brad and Sarah lead this presentation with the work that they've been doing in the Eugene Springfield area. But I just wanted to say thank you for carving out some time on the agenda. The support from MPC really allows Safe Routes to School to make those strides year after year. So it's really important work. With that, I'll hand it off to Brad and Sarah to share their screen.
Sure.
Carry on.
I'm going to give that a shot.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for the interruption a few minutes ago. I'm having a bad technology day, so my apologies. When my colleague gets the presentation up, we can go ahead and start.
Can you tell me if you see it?
I don't see it yet.
Do you see it now?
No.
Oh, did someone say yes?
No, it's not up.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, that was kind of, like I said, troubleshoot, make sure everything's good to go. Maybe go grab some dinner.
There you go.
Okay.
Light.
Are you seeing it?
250.
Yep.
Silver Lane.
There
Yes. All righty. Thank you. I apologize. I can't see it, so I'm on my phone. But thank you for having us today. And mostly important, thank you for funding us over the years and allowing this program to exist in such a robust form that we're going to show you today. My name, again, is Brad Albee. I'm the Regional Safe Routes Coordinator. I work with 4J, I work with Bethel, and I work with Springfield school districts, and also with our rural Lane County Safe Route to School program. The Safe Route to School program works to make it easier, safer, and more efficient and more fun for students to walk, bike, and bus, and skate, and scoot for their school commute every day. There are many ways that we go about accomplishing this goal. We won't be able to cover them all today, but we hope to give you a good snapshot of the work that we do as a whole, changes over the last year to our program, and also the positive ripples that this program does create. We're delighted to do this important work and love when a child says to us, who just learned to ride a bike or walks to school safely, we hear, "This is the best day of my life." So it's very fun work. If you could move to the second slide. Currently, each one of our school districts have a program coordinator. We also have one role coordinator, and then myself as the regional coordinator. So I move around. In addition, we've also been very lucky to have 4 outstanding interns through the University of Oregon. And they've been working on such projects as transit curriculum for middle school students in 4J, supplemental bus plan in Springfield, and outreach in with the Innovative Mobility Grant in Bethel. In addition, they've assisted us with all of our school-based programming and our community events that we've held during the 24-25 school year. Next slide. As you know, the framework that we and other Safe Routes to School programs across the country use is known as the 6 E's of Safe Routes to School. We won't be talking about each one of these today, but we'll be highlighting a few points with a few of them.
Okay.
Next slide. Starting with education, we've expanded our education programming over the last year. We now have not just pedestrian and bike safety, but we also continue to grow our Learn to Ride program, and we have added transit education.
Books that I think came from.
Next slide.
I got them. I haven't opened them yet.
Scooter Town is a new pedestrian safety program, which is a immersive simulation where students become drivers, pedestrians, and workers. They ask and answer questions about walking safely, biking around their town, getting around. It's a very, very cute program. It was developed out of Beaverton with a program coordinator, and it's just really an adorable little town that we create. We ran this program with 8 schools in 4J and about 5 in Springfield this year, and we plan to take this engaging version of pedestrian safety across our districts in the years to come. Next slide.
Okay.
Safe Routes to Schools created and piloted a new transit curriculum for middle schools, using 1 day in the classroom and a second day on a field trip. Using transit, students learn how to access and see the benefits of using the bus to get around, riding around with confidence, and learning about safety. In the classroom, they practice using LTD's website and Google Maps to find their routes to school. They learn bus riding basics, like how to make sure they're getting on the right bus, how to get off at the right spots, and discuss troubleshooting problems like missing their bus or dealing with uncomfortable situations and other people and dealing with people riding the bus and how to deal with all those scenarios. The results of the pre and post-test survey for the program shows that it's a huge success, with nearly all the students feeling confident about their bus riding skills, and twice as many saying that they plan to ride the bus to school in high school. Next slide. 4J in Springfield continued to teach hundreds of students to ride bikes each year. An equity program in its core, this program levels the playing field so that nearly all of our students in the district know how to pedal or at least balance on a bike by the time they leave first grade. We've expanded the program to our life skills classes in many of our schools, and we spend a lot of time at our highest need schools. Next slide. Along with the cities of Springfield and Eugene, LCOG, Cascadia Mobility, Shift Community Cycles, and AARP. We hold 4 events across the region each year with participation as high as 150 people and 30 staff and volunteers at each event. Come to one of our events and you'll see lots of hard work, smiling faces, and expressions of gratitude from kids and families alike. Many of the participants at these events are those kids, teens, and even adults who struggle to learn how to ride a bike or simply haven't had the opportunity. Next.
We are, yeah.
We also provide ongoing learn to ride opportunities in summer school and our migrant education programs. These programs reach some of the highest needs and most underserved students.
High school.
This year, we are working with pre-K programs in Eugene to bring biking to the very youngest population and give them a head start in getting to school.
Okay, so we want to have them.
Next slide. This year, Springfield Safe Routes to Schools celebrate the teaching of 1,000 students to ride a bike. Altogether, the 4J program and its regional events have taught another 2,000 students to pedal. That means we're at 3,000 and counting. Again, we do this by our kindergarten learn to rides, our community learn to rides 4 times a year, and summer school and migrant ed programs, and all the other things that we do inside the schools to help with bicycling. All of these education programs take massive amount of staff, intern, and volunteer time and energy. We simply couldn't do it without our current levels of staffing and funding.
Yes, yeah.
Next slide. Bike safety education continues to increase in the number of schools reached and the innovative ways that we're reaching all the students. This year, bike safety education in Eugene reached a record-breaking number of schools, reaching nearly 300 more students than previously in 2023-24. We also integrated adaptive bikes into the program, thanks to a partnership with the City of Eugene's Adaptive Recreation Program. And this year, Bethel School District added an adaptive bike showcase day to normalize the use of these adaptive bikes, which our programs use to allow the students to participate in traffic safety lessons and practice regardless of any student's abilities.
2 meters at that church.
Springfield doubled the amount of bikes in its fleet, acquiring a second trailer to reach more students, and recently was awarded a grant for a fleet of bikes through the Outrider Foundation. So their middle school is going to have a basically a mountain bike team class, and it's going to bring bring some training to their teachers, and it's a very big deal at Hamlin Middle School in Springfield. So, Sarah, we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you, Brad. So I'm going to move on to encouragement. And this is another area where we've really expanded our offerings in the last year with ongoing walking and biking, school buses, walk and roll events, bike rodeos, bike lock and helmet giveaways, and free bike repair events. So I'm going to just zoom in on some of those and tell you a little more about them. In Springfield, there are several schools that have weekly chaperoned walking groups to school, walking school buses. This is one of the key ways that Safe Routes to School can help kids use more active transportation. In 4J, we've had a couple of bike buses that have operated for parts of the year, and we're looking to continue to expand that.
I really enjoyed working with
Each of our districts, Bethel, 4J, and Springfield, hold multiple walk and roll to school day events a year. And these are events that really just celebrate the students who are already using active and shared transportation. And then the intention is that they help open that door and let families try walking, biking, busing to school with the hope that they'll find it to be an enjoyable experience and will integrate it into their lives moving forward. In Bethel School District, they put a lot of work into the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. And that is a walk and roll event that celebrates civil rights hero Ruby Bridges, the first Black student to integrate a white elementary school. And so they have story walks where students walk and see lawn signs with the story of Ruby Bridges. The high school students design curriculum that they bring to the middle schools, and they do read alouds in the elementary school. They have a wall of courage where students put acts of kindness and courage up on a wall. And then, of course, they have lots of walks to school, group walks to school. So that's a really big deal in Bethel, which is awesome. And in 4J, we've been having ongoing bike rodeos. The picture on the right is, if you've got a big enough screen, you might see that the person in the middle is actually riding a unicycle, which is not our doing, but that particular school has an awesome unicycle program. And so these events we do, and we do them at our highest needs schools. We partner with the BEST after school program, which BEST works at the highest needs schools with the students there who are both low income and have the greatest academic needs. And they give them extra tutoring and then some extra enrichment events. And our bike rodeos are one of those enrichment events, and they love it. We teach kids to ride, we help them build their bike skills, and we have pedal powered smoothies. So that's a really fun one. We also do in our encouragement activities try to address barriers like students not having a working bike or not having a bike at all, or bikes getting stolen from school, which unfortunately is a reality. I hate to say it. So on the right there, this picture you see is at Hamlin Middle School, where we partner with Shift Community Cycles, and those high school age students you see, those are students on our Lane LITAC, Lane Youth Transportation Advisory Council, an advisory group made up of middle and high schoolers across the entire county. And they volunteer at events like this and run their own events. And so any Hamlin student or student in the whole district could come with their bike and get it repaired for free by Shift. And we've done that at multiple elementary and middle schools across 4J, Bethel, and Springfield. And then the picture on the left, this is also a partnership with Shift Community Cycles as well as Free Bikes for Kids, where we find out those kids who need a bike and wouldn't be able to otherwise get one and get them a free refurbished bike. And so these two students are riding their new to them bikes, and they're really excited about it. And then we also, through our education foundations, we've been able to get things like thousands of dollars of U-locks to help to give out for free. We get helmets from Safe Kids West. So we're really leveraging resources from around the region to help students have what they need to be able to use active transportation to get to school safely. Another thing that we're really proud of in the last year and years, but especially this year, is we've been working hard to expand our middle and high school participation in the program. So there are various ways we've been doing that. On the left, you see a picture of our transit education program, students riding the bus and having fun doing it. And next year, this is going to be a part of most 4J 8th grade health classes, possibly all, but at least the majority of them will have it. And we may even be able to get it into some 9th grade health classes to give a refresher, and also some of the intro to like Sheldon 101, the intro classes for freshmen at high schools. And this is really great because we don't have yellow school buses for most of our high school students in 4J school district. So it's really crucial that they feel comfortable and know how to ride the bus. In the middle there, you see a picture of a project that we worked on with Kelly Middle School students and some North Eugene High School students who are on our youth advisory board. They designed a survey to ask community members, students, and families in the region what they would what they would like to see around infrastructure on Grove Street. Grove is a county-owned street that connects North Eugene High School to the neighborhood, as well as Kelly Middle School and Howard Elementary, and a Head Start program. And so they went outdoor. They were getting ready in this picture to go door to door and talk to people and ask them to take their survey. And they did get many responses and had got some great skills learning about infrastructure and public outreach doing this project. We also have in 4J, nearly all of our middle schools are now participating in Walk and Roll to School events with the leadership classes running the show. And so these are much more middle school friendly events because they're the ones designing the events. And then again, Ruby Bridges, as I mentioned, lots of involvement in Bethel from the older students there, the free bike repair and the bike giveaways. And then we continue to work with LTD to help smooth that free student pass distribution program, which is such an amazing resource that all of our students in LTD's service area have the access to free student bus passes. Okay, and then evaluation, equity, and engagement. Just gonna pack those all into one slide here, but there are some exciting things we've made progress on this year. So one thing we've really wanted to be able to do is look at, are we actually meeting our goal of providing the most of our limited resources to the students and schools that need them most? And so we have now really locked in a way that we can look at, this is just one example, but look at some different ways that we can put together our equity scores for schools that are based on the student demographics and what we are tracking of data of what we're doing in our Safe Routes to School program. So here you can see each school gets a blue and a red bar, and the blue bar is the equity score, with the highest being the bigger bars are the highest need. And then the red is the total number of Safe Routes activities. It's a little bit, you can see this differently in a scatter plot, but we are actually giving the most resources to those schools that have the highest need. We've got a couple of outliers on the end with our, those very highest, we are giving more resources to them, but those not in traditional ways. Those aren't traditional schools. But that's really exciting to see that we are indeed putting our money where our mouths are in terms of equity. And then another couple of exciting things for evaluations, if you get excited about data. We in 4J have made a big breakthrough where we just got we would really like to be able to measure mode, and how we would like to know how students get to school and what's the mode split and what does it look like over the years. And just this year, for the first time, and it should stay this way moving forward, our school climate survey, which goes out to all 3rd through 12th graders, now has a question on how do you get to school on most days with nice weather? How do you get to school on most days with not as nice weather? And so when that data gets evaluated, we'll be able to break it down by school, by all sorts of different demographic factors, and know how our students are getting to school, and look at some trends over the years in the future. And then one more exciting thing is that our communications team and our schools partnered with us to really push out a district-wide survey asking families to weigh in on how their kids got to school, but also what are the barriers and what are the benefits to riding the bus, whether it's the school bus or LTD, and to using active transportation. So we are digging into the analysis of that and planning to use that to help us with messaging, and also making sure that students and families have the resources that they need to be able to use active and shared transportation. And these are things that can also potentially get integrated into the other districts. Our last E that I want to talk about is engineering. This is a big focus of our program, and this work involves generally partnering with our local jurisdictions, to share priorities based on our objectively ranked project lists. We also gather input from schools and school communities. We participate in grant applications. We do a lot of the outreach before, during, and after construction. And this is where a lot of our equity and engagement work comes into play. And, there's different opportunities for construction in Springfield and Eugene and Coburg, as there are different funding sources available for those infrastructure improvements. But all of our districts have been really fortunate in being able to benefit from ODOT Safe Routes to School grants. And a few recent projects that we're excited about and think are having or will have a big impact are include this picture you see here of Howard Avenue. This connects, oh gosh, nearly a mile from the school from a middle school and elementary school all the way out to River Road in the River Road neighborhood in Eugene. And there is now this separated walking and biking space that's getting heavily used by students and the community when it's not, not in arrival and dismissal time. So that's really exciting. Lane County put in speed cushions at another 4J elementary school in front, and there's state funds for another separated walking and biking space like you see here at that school. Big changes are coming to Hamlin Middle School, where they're going to have multi-use paths, rapid flashing beacons, and school zone improvements. And the city of Eugene also got a planning grant, and consultants from Alta Planning have been working with the school community and residents to do a planning process on 30th, which is really great because that connects to the planning that Lane County has been doing further out on 30th Street, a really dangerous street. And then just one last one, there's been funding through the state for improvements on Chambers and 22nd that will serve several of our schools with an improved connect piece of the network for walking and biking. So we really, really appreciate the collaboration that we have with our jurisdictional partners and the emphasis that all of you put on Safe Routes to School. It's huge and is making a big difference in people's lives. So all that you've heard, we could not accomplish all of this without the incredible partnerships that the agencies and organizations provide throughout the region. We only put up a few of the logos here. This photo is from an adaptive bike open house that we held with the city of Eugene. We just held our second one of those less than a month ago. And you've heard a lot about the other partnerships, the bike giveaways, repair events with Shift. Cascadia Mobility is part of our Community Learn Tried team. LTD provides those free bus passes that are amazing. And they've been supporting our transit education program. And we partner endlessly with our school districts to reach students for education and outreach events. Recently, we've been expanding our connections within our own school districts to work with the physical and occupational therapists and life skills teachers so that we're better serving more of our students. And that has been really exciting and rewarding. And then members of our team sit on the Lane Act and the Springfield BPAC and Eugene's ATC and more and more and more. So, and the community loves what we do. We're helping kids get to school. We're helping them be active. We're bringing joy. We're easing the burden on families and building community. And you can see we are just as busy as ever with the classes that we're teaching, the projects we're completing and the ones we're planning, the equipment we move around, the meetings we hold with all levels of school, city, and county personnel, the planning coordinated with our partners, and just the work we're doing to keep kids in our community safe. So again, I just want to echo what Brad started off with. The robust level that we are operating at and really is thanks to all of the partnerships and funding from this group and from each of the school districts. And so just want to thank all of you wholeheartedly for the opportunity to do this work and also to share it with you today. Thanks. We can take any questions if people have questions or comments. Oh, Randy, you're muted.
That's not uncommon. Thank you very much to our three presenters for the presentation. And so now open it for questions or comments from the MPC. And I see Pete Knox has his hand raised. Pete.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, what a cool program. Really like what you guys are doing. But I do have a question. Do we have any data on, this education's piece. Does that over time, do we know if that's actually causing students to change their commute patterns and their and how they do things? Beyond just like maybe the first week or two after, but maybe even years after going through some of that education piece.
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I was saying in that evaluation slide, the the data collection, there's a lot of layers to this. I mean, one layer is we know that probably the biggest thing that changes behavior patterns is the price of gas, right? There's a lot of other factors that change behavior patterns. That being said, anecdotally, I will say that when we do a bike safety class or a learn to ride class, you go back to that school and you'll see more bikes in the bike rack. So I would say anecdotally, yes. I'll also say that, and we do encourage students at the end of it, okay, now you have these new skills, talk to your family about biking to school. I'll also say that the data collection got tricky with COVID, and then also the federal database kind of warehouse for safe routes to school shut down. And so that's part of why this, and so we have a gap in our data collection, and it was really hard to get schools to collect the data. So that's part of why I'm so excited about having a mode question on this school climate survey, because now instead of begging teachers, please, can you ask your students how they got to school today? We can just have the students directly tell us, how do you get to school, which should be more effective over the years. So I think moving forward, we'll be able to answer that question better.
So basically, you got a gap from multiple things from the last few years before we can actually. So we can't really. And of course, the pandemic was a weird time where commute patterns were completely thrown to the wind. So yeah.
And it's always been we've collected data the whole time we've had this program, but it's always been a little bit spotty in school by school, because we ask a school, hey, can you ask your teachers to do this tally for us, and to ask students how they got to school today. And some schools are so overwhelmed that none of them do it. Some, we get a little bit of participation. It's been more hit or miss than we would like. So I think moving forward, we should have some much better data. I will say also, though, that if you look nationally at what safe routes, research on safe routes to school, education is shown to be effective. So there's that as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pete. Vidal.
Hey, good afternoon, good afternoon, Sarah. Good to see you. And thanks for what you and your team do. Really appreciate that a whole lot. I just have a quick question that sometimes this pops in my mind, but I never know how it really happens. I know that the focus really is trying to get folks, or let's say students, on their bicycles, moving and so forth. But what about those students that are more challenged? In other words, they actually can't ride a bike. Maybe they're on some sort of wheelchair, some sort of mobile device and so forth. Are they given the opportunities to go through some of these programs or / education pieces that could accommodate them or enhance them so that they could be encouraged? For example, like I like the fact that you're talking about LTD, introducing students to LTD. And we know that a lot of folks don't ride simply because they never did ride.
Yeah.
But if you look at a student who's probably, challenged of some sort, maybe they got a wheelchair or a mobile device that they're using, introducing them to LTD to see how easy it could be to try to ride here. How when you experience or encounter those types of situations, how is that happening with you and your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know that a lot of our presentation focused on things we're doing around biking, but really the Safe Routes program is focused on active transportation as a whole. We encourage walking, biking, skateboarding, scooting. We give away scooters and skateboards as part of our walk and roll to school day. We call it walk and roll because we are trying to encourage use of mobility devices as well for active transportation, and riding the bus. So we also encourage carpools and riding the school bus or LTD bus. That partnership, we've partnered with the Adaptive Recreation Program for many years. If you just want to talk about our education programs, for the bike safety, we have partnered for many years with the Hilliard Adaptive Recreation Program. And so we do bring in adaptive bikes, and students participate on adaptive bikes. There are many different options to meet different needs. The partnership with the life skills classes and the physical and occupational therapists is letting us work with students who aren't integrated into if their students are integrated into their classroom, they're participating in our activities. And we make accommodations in partnership with the school. If they're not integrated, then and they're in their separate life skills class, for example. We've been doing much, much more in this last year of working directly with life skills classes. I just an hour ago was working with a life skills class, and it was great. Students, being celebrated one for just sitting on the bike. It took him 2 days to just sit on the bike, and he got a little clap line at the end of walking back into class because everyone was so excited that he sat on the bike. It was really, really sweet. And so we're doing a lot to make accommodations, and I think we're really growing in that area.
If I could add just one thing to that, our community learn to rides on the flyers that we create. We've started to put a QR code inviting anybody who needs an adaptive bike. We can have one there for them. So that's kind of a new thing that we've always had the ability, and we've brought them in before, but this is just a way to let us know that what specifically they might need, and we can get it for them.
Thank you very much. Mayor Van Gordon.
All right, thank you. Do you offer scooting and skateboarding classes for elected officials? Because I hear the Eugene City Council would want to take advantage of the river path a little bit more. No. I just wanted to say thank you for the work you guys do. Safer Access School is really popular in Springfield, right? My second graders now, first graders last year, were involved in the program, and they were 1,000% more confident around the bike when they were done. So if the feedback helps, anecdotally, my family's had a great experience with it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent.
Commissioner Parr, I think I saw your hand flicker on and off a couple of times. Are you entertaining us, or you want to speak?
That was a bad flicker. I was just trying to clap my hands. No, I'm sorry. I was away from the meeting with OHA for a bit. I'm back now, so I apologize for the involuntary hand flicker.
It's good to have you back, sir. I just wanted to thank you as well. And, from my perspective, I think one of the most important things we do as a society is prepare the next generation. And a big piece of that is safely communicating our children from home to school and from school back to home. And I think it's incumbent upon all of our jurisdictions to be working together with our school districts, which we do. But it's very important because, when we work together, we can accomplish more things. And I want to give one example and a shout out that's happening in my council ward involving Churchill High School. And Sarah, I'm sure you're aware that there was a crosswalk put in on West 18th, which traffic travels too fast. Well, thanks to some of the staff who are on this call today, Rob Innerfield and our traffic engineer, we're getting flashing lights for that crossing right now because it's like cars aren't even slowing down. And so anyway, and that's more important than just Churchill High School. Middle school kids are using that same crosswalk to get to Kennedy Middle School, which is just south of Churchill High School. So anyway, I mean, this is important work, and appreciate all you've done on this. And thank you for bringing this presentation to the MPC. So with that, are there any other questions or final comments from our presenters, or questions for our presenters? I'm seeing none. So we're going to move on to item 6C. This is ODOT update. So Vidal, do you have anything for us?
Chair Grove, yes, I could share just a couple of items, and I'll try to be really brief with those. The first one, we're still working on, ODOT is still working on the 100% list for the next STIP cycle, which would be the 2730 STIP. Normally by now we would already have those projects, and I would try to share those with the group here to see what's coming in our area, but I don't have a list right now. And part of the nuance, if you will, right now is because instead of programming 4 years worth of projects, it appears that they're going to be just programming 1 year worth of projects, and then every year subsequently after that, be programming more and more projects. And I think that's to help come in line with the new CIP objective that we've been conditioning ourselves to go through. And again, you're probably going to hear more conversations with that, the new capital investment program that's going to be coming out as far as that 10-year rolling period that you probably have heard us talking about, throwing projects into this bucket, if you will, and then every year just rolling them into the STIPs, the ones that are ready. So once I get that list of projects that would be coming out for that first year of 2027, I'll be happy to share that with that group, with this group right here. The second item, as far as legislative updates are concerned on my end, don't have a huge to say, but Assistant Director Lindsay Baker did shoot out a little message to some of us, and I'll just share a little bit of it with you. And some of it you probably already know. Basically, that there was about 3,500 bills this last legislative session, quite a many of them. A lot of them did not survive that first chamber, which happened in April. And consequently, that reduced it down to about 1,800 bills. And then that second deadline that came reduced it down to 1,600 bills that were still alive. And of the 1,600 bills, ODOT is tracking about 350 of those. And out of that 350, there's about 70 of them that's kind of in line with what we're seeing as priorities on our end that we're trying to track. Again, I don't have the names of all of those. If you give me some more time, and once this legislative session ends, I'll be able to share some of that more with the group here. Lindsay Baker did kind of mention a few things that she think that could be coming out, but I don't want to be speculative, if you will. Obviously, we are optimistic that there's going to be a commitment to our maintenance and operations funding that's needed. We also are anticipating, or at least looking at possibly a mandatory road usage charge program that could come out. And this is, start with EVs, and then over time, it would move over to some of the other vehicles. We're also thinking about a strong commitment to some of the major projects that's up in the Portland area, which would include Rose Quarter, I-205, and Abernathy, with their maintenance systems and operations and preservation for those projects. Another thing, we're also anticipating some additional investments to Safe Routes to School, as well as the Great Streets program. And again, the presentation that was just mentioned here earlier is a good indication of a lot of the good work that happened in all of the various communities that needs to happen with like you mentioned earlier, with talking with those younger folks that's going to be replacing us in the coming years, getting them ready to be able to take on the roles that's needed for the future. She mentioned a few other things, but I'm not going to belabor us with all those items. But again, and based on her comment to me, we're anticipating the bill to drop sometime this week, whatever that may be. And I think they've been saying that for the last 2-3 weeks. So we're hopefully by the end of Friday at 5 p.m., maybe something to come our way. And the last thing I do want to touch up on, and this is just to respond back to, actually, it was you, Chair Groves, who asked me the question about the OR 126 westbound bridge project that we have right now. The level of work, the question that you actually asked was, with the work being done on that structure right now in Springfield, will that improve the rating capacity on that bridge? And I believe the issue kind of stems around the two, I believe it's the EV2 vehicles and the EV3 vehicles that's been load posted on that structure. And for some of us that's not familiar with that, that's the two types of emergency vehicles that typically would run through the area, your big ladder trucks. And I may be saying it wrong, but your larger ladder trucks, larger emergency vehicles that come through there. The work that's being done on that structure right now, in so much words, there is some sidewalk strengthening that's going to be going on. The deck itself, they're going to be removing 2 inches of existing concrete and replacing that with some high performance concrete, putting the 2 inches back onto there. There's a few nuances with some illumination going on. And maybe some signage and so forth. And I believe towards the east side of the bridge, there's some drainage that needs to happen, as well as the end panels needs to be replaced. And that project went out for bid in April, and it bid for $1.6 million. And that's the extent of the work that was going on. Basically, they're removing what's existing and then putting that back on there. And I pointed the question directly to our bridge folks and said, hey, look, what's the situation as far as the capacity on this structure with the work that's going on? Will it improve? And the response I got back was basically the increase in capacity is going to be very minimal. And that's because the existing load rating on the deck that occurred on it, that posted the structure, is actually not the limiting factor on this particular structure here. With that too, I went even further, and I actually asked the pointed question again and say, look, what would it take to get this structure such that it's no longer posted for the EV2 and the EV3 type vehicles? If Chair Groves, can I share my screen here? I don't want to. What I want to do is bring everyone along with me. Let's see here.
If I could clarify, Vidal, my interest wasn't in increasing the load rate. My interest was in bringing, it's been reduced from the as-builts, and my interest is bringing it back to the as-built, which my understanding of the situation, that would return the ability for at least the ladder trucks to go back and forth. Engines can right now, but basically response from Springfield into Springfield, that's Glenwood, they can't get there. So they're having to get help from much further away, or that ladder truck has to travel 105 and wrap around and come back into it.
I don't know if everyone can see what's on the screen right now.
I can see it.
Okay. And I can't see everyone. So and again, this is Chair Groves. I know you and I know what we're talking about. I just want to make sure that everyone else on the screen, we're kind of bringing them along so that they can kind of see exactly. And I'm going to answer two questions to what you just kind of mentioned there. Back when Obama was president, he signed a bill, if you will, law into law, and it was called the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. And this is where emergency vehicles with heavier than legal axle weights are legal on the statewide system and within reasonable access to an interstate. In other words, typically those loadings that those two vehicles normally have on our on the roadways, we normally do not use those as load ratings to post any vehicles. It wasn't until this law came into effect that we were mandated to use those types of vehicles and load rate those for every a bridge that's out there. Now, the law is limited to the interstate system and everything within 1 mile of the interstate system. Okay. And I think that's more so because they want the interstate to be usable for these types of vehicles 100%, as well as access to the system these vehicles can be used for it. And traditionally, we just use this type vehicle as the controlling load rating factor or load rating for a structure to see that it's passable. And that's just a single, let's just say a regular box truck, if you will. Sometimes it's single axle in the rear, sometimes it's double. But in this case, you can see that it's 34,000 pounds, if you will, on the rear and about 16K maximum, if you will, on the front. That's the typical load rating that we would use. But as we go into the this law that was passed, and now I'm bringing in the EV2 because the structure is rated, obviously, is load posted for the EV2. This is the EV2 as well as the EV1. When we run those through the load rating to see if it meets the demands for it, again, the rear single axle is at 33, and then the front is at 24, which actually brings it over capacity for based on that law that went into effect. And that's why you saw, Chair Groves, that over the course of times, the vehicles were using it. But once that law came into effect at the end of Obama's term, we had to go ahead and post that. And I'm going to go ahead and show, this is the EV2s, your bigger ones with your ladder trucks. And again, just as a reminder here, typically for single axle, it's 20,000 pounds that we would normally load rate to be acceptable, and then 34 for the end. But in this case, we got 62,000 pounds on the rear and then 24 in the front. But and that's what's making it really, really challenging. But just for comparison, so that we can kind of see, we actually do have vehicles that do have the 62,000 pounds load on them with the picture that's showed here. But when you look at that entire loading on that truck is actually spread out the entire 22 feet of that truck. Whereas the rear vehicles on the EV3 here, it's right within 4 feet, which makes it very difficult for some of our structures in their current condition right now. And I just put a little depiction here so folks can kind of see, it's much easier to get this across the bridge because you've spread out that load to various axles than it would be to this. And again, this is just a depiction. And to bring this all full circle, the structure that westbound structure right now was designed in 1927, right, with an H15, which is just a 15-ton vehicle. Okay, but today, we got 43 tons coming through there. And a result of the legislation that happened at the end of, not legislation, but the bill that Obama signed at the end of his term, it forced us to go ahead and load rate all of our structures to these larger vehicles, which if we're talking about a bridge built in 1927, to get that up to capacity to be able to support something like this long term, always coming through, we would have to upgrade not only the deck, you're talking about the columns, the foundations, quite a bit of things to bring that up to capacity, to that standard, if you will. And again, I'm just showing this so that everyone else can kind of follow through with us, Councilor Grove. And again, I'm not trying to give an excuse about the thing. It's just that this is the situation why we were allowing it the first time. Vehicles were coming through, but as a result of this bill, everything within a mile of the interstate, if you will, we've got to load rate those to these newer heavy loaded emergency vehicles. And to my understanding, with our bridge folks, having more conversations with them, they're actually going to be load rating all of the bridge structures countywide, to be honest with you, with these larger EV2s and EV3s, and I would understand there would be more load postings to come in the near future. But again, they're still trying to work on this statewide, handling just the interstates and everything within 1 mile of the interstates, load rating those to these large vehicles. And then beyond that, they're going to be going out to the various locations throughout the various states, obviously, to get everything up to speed, and which means there more than likely will be more bridges load posted to these larger vehicles. The standard vehicles will still be able to come through, but these larger ones for these older, significantly older structures, it's going to be, in my opinion, and again, I haven't run the numbers, most likely replacement for these older structures rather than rehabs, because the cost to replace versus trying to rehab something to get a few more years out of it for a limited amount of oversized vehicles will be challenging. And
Thank you, Vida. I appreciate that, but maybe I can reach out to you separately and ask a question about tillered aerials, which axles are further apart than the platforms, which the rear axles are closer together. I appreciate you looking into that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, Chair, I don't want to rush things along. I just want to note that Commissioner Farr indicated he has to leave in less than 5 minutes, and we would lose quorum for item 7A, which does require action for the report that's due by the end of this month to ODOT.
Well, then let's move on, and I will reach out to you later, Vidal. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, we're now moving on to our next agenda item, which is climate-friendly and equitable communities, known as CFEC. So let's begin the conversation, and I guess that's Kelly.
Yeah, Chair, I can kick us off here. Paul, I do have a question though for point of order. If we do lose Commissioner Farr and we don't have a quorum, is it possible to do a vote before we do the presentation, or do you have a suggestion of how to handle that?
I would first, if I may, ask Commissioner Farr if he has any flexibility in his timing and whether or not it's up to the chair in terms of order of the action.
You know, Paul, I'm chair for that meeting and they're waiting for me. That being said, this is important. So I'll go to that meeting and I'll try and hold both concurrently. I'm in a place right now where I think I can open both meetings at the same time. And I'll keep an eye on this, keep an ear on this, and be ready for the vote when it's necessary.
You're amazing.
Commissioner Farr?
Technology is amazing. Yes.
I will text you when we get close to the vote.
Okay, and as soon as I step in that room right there, you can't see where I'm pointing, I'll have two screens, so I can keep both, I can juggle, so. All right.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, Kelly, let's take her away.
Okay, and I'm just going to kick it up by handing it over to Tracy and team.
Hi, everyone. Starting off with some quick introductions. I'm Tracy Lunsford. I'm with Parametrics, and we're the consultant team that is supporting the work on this CFEC project. We have a couple other people here with us today. Ryan Farncombe on my team, if you want to say hi.
Hey, folks. Ryan Farncombe, Parametrics Project Manager for the effort.
And Brian Hurley is here with ODOT.
Hello, folks. Brian Hurley with the ODOT Climate Office. I am the ODOT representative for this effort.
And Cody, do you want to say hi?
Good afternoon. Cody Meyer, DLCD.
And of course, Kelly is supporting the effort as well with LCOG. So I'm going to go ahead and put up the presentation, and I was trying to do it in the way that we do with Teams. Give me just 1 second here. All right, you should be seeing my presentation now. Okay, so this is our update on the climate-friendly and equitable communities scenario planning effort. Today, we want to go through project updates, take a quick look at the final performance measures with baselines and targets, and go through the updates of the Central Lane scenario plan by highlighting future areas of focus. We'll inform you of the action items required after today's meeting, and then we will end with a request of your approval for the Central Lane Scenario Plan Implementation Chapter. For project updates, we had the final jurisdictional PMT in mid-May, and we discussed the final implementation chapter, measures, targets. We reviewed the feedback that we received from you in early May. And our goal was to assess the support from the jurisdictional staff in presenting this chapter to you to request for approval. We also updated the Appendix A according to your request to account for additional efforts that all of your jurisdictions have been making over the past year or so since that appendix was finalized. So we did update that and finalize that. You'll see that in your materials that we submitted to you. Another update is we had intended to update all of the calculations using the most recent travel model that is currently being updated. However, that project has been delayed, and we were unable to incorporate that updated data at this point. And so the data that is being used for these calculations is using your existing travel model. And then we finalized targets with a target year of 2045. And then going back to after doing all of those things, the jurisdictions in that PMT meeting did express their support for bringing this chapter to you here to the MPC. So let's get into those performance measures. We're just going to go over them really quickly to make sure that you see how things have shaken out in the end. There are 6 active transportation performance measures. Of course, you've seen these. There are a couple more slides. You've seen these over the course of a couple presentations, but we wanted to make sure that you did indeed see the updated baseline and 2045 targets. So these are the first 3 with, again, those equity measures that we have in there are basically a zoom in on the underserved population neighborhoods, which are defined by ODOT's Social Equity Index. So we're looking at active transportation network increase and shared micromobility trips. These both have baselines and targets for Eugene and Springfield separately. Access to jobs and services through active transportation and transit is a regional performance measure with regional baseline and target. It's consistent with the RTP. And then mode share is has a target for both Eugene and Springfield. There is one transportation system measure, and it is regional, looking for household-based vehicle miles traveled per capita. And then there are 5 transit measures. These are the first 2. The first level of transit service is regional, and then access to frequent transit is based on the plans within each city. Of course, there's a zoom in on equity for access to frequent transit. And then we have transit stops intersecting with safe and convenient pedestrian facilities with a zoom in on equity too. And those are all separate baseline and targets for Eugene and Springfield. We have one parking measure, and that has been updated for the city of Eugene. And then one transportation options measure, that's a regional measure looking at the number of employees in the region. So that is a summary of the performance measures, baselines, and targets that you received in your packet for tracking progress on the CLSP. So the next section that I'm going to go to is the update on the 2015 Central Lane Scenario Plan. Here I'm going to focus on the future areas of focus by strategy. And just to summarize what is in, again, that implementation chapter that you received in your materials. So starting off, there are 6 active transportation strategies. And generally, we saw that they have medium to high progress in the region. There's been a significant amount of progress in this area. And future areas of focus that are recommended is to continue existing progress and build on support for biking and walking facilities, making sure not to also focus in on those underserved population neighborhoods so that the benefits are being distributed equitably. We've seen that you've done a great job finding win-win opportunities to build biking and walking facilities along with other projects and working with multidisciplinary projects. And then we recommend continuing the bike share expansion by increasing the number and density in high-use areas. Also within active transportation, we recommend considering creative partnerships with developers for additional bike and ped infrastructure, expanded funding for the Safe Routes to School, which we just saw a presentation on, that great program that has made a lot of progress. And then filling in the active transportation network gaps in the climate-friendly areas, and additional developer incentives for walkable neighborhoods. So that's the basic summary of the future areas of focus for the active transportation. Again, there were 6 strategies related to active transportation. With transit, there are 7 strategies in the transit category. And overall, we saw medium progress in this area. And the future areas of focus are to support efforts for state funding and capital investments, and then also continue to support local funding for transit operations and maintenance. Targeting federal transit grants where they are available, and then making sure that those underserved population neighborhoods get their fair share of frequent transit. So making sure to zoom in there on those. Additionally, we saw opportunity to capitalize on the opportunities that are created by the CFA, the Climate Friendly Area designation, as part of this process, integrating transit and walking and biking projects, and then the working toward those recommendations that are identified in the first and last mile transit study. Continuing to focus on improving transit rider experience, and then supporting personal security on transit to make sure that people are excited to ride the system that is built out for them. The next strategy category is pricing, and there are 4 pricing strategies in CLSP. They're all showing a varied level of progress. A couple of them require continued support of statewide funding efforts, and some have local action, including ensuring funding efforts that are ensuring that funding efforts are indexed with inflation so that funding continues to be effective, and then supporting stable funding across sources outside of the gas tax, looking toward the future and how that funding will be applicable. In parking management, there are 2 strategies. They have medium to high levels of progress, and future areas of focus include aligning parking fees with parking management goals and emphasizing active transportation and transit so that people don't need to park. In the education and marketing category, there are 6 strategies, and this is also showing a range of progress. Generally, the future areas of focus highlight continuation and expansion of existing efforts, collaboration among jurisdictions and with the private sector, including consideration of incentives for car share programs to prioritize electric vehicles, and some focus on establishing long-term habits of transit, transit passes for youth and transit ridership, and again, calling back to that Safe Routes to School program. Those are the sorts of habits to focus on for long-term effect. So those are that's the summary of the future areas of focus that were included in the implementation chapter as an update to the Central Lane scenario planning effort from 2015. So with that, I will turn it back over to Kelly to talk about the action items that are required after this meeting, and then to request the action for today.
And maybe before that, Tracy, were there any questions from any members today?
I did go through quite a lot pretty quickly.
I have a question, and it pertains to a question I asked earlier about the other document that we reviewed. Have we spent any time going through this and trying to align our language with what's acceptable by the federal government so we don't cut ourselves out from funding?
I can respond to that. This is a state required.
Okay, but does the federal government doesn't look at this then?
No,
okay.
They don't. This is where we have our LCOG hats on right now as we're presenting and managing this project, not our MPO hats.
Thank you. I just am sensitive to that right now. I mean, funding is hard enough to come by, and we just don't need to shoot ourselves in the foot. But at the same time, I realize it's important that we reflect our values. Paul, and then Sean or Mayor Van Gordon after that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to add real quick that I don't think this plan or this specific action is a risk related to what you're speaking to, Chair. Really, what we're more in tune with looking at on the state level is the fact that Oregon is a sanctuary state, that the governor has issued directions to state agencies to do certain things. We can't change that with this action, which we're required to take. It's really up to the state whether they're going to adjust to federal risks.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Van Gordon.
I was just going to echo the question that you had, Councilor Groves, and that we continue to monitor this because we're balancing two sets of direction here that could be, in the ever-changing world of the federal environment. If we wait 10 more minutes, we could have to do something else.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Commissioner Farr.
Well, just concurrent with everybody else, we're waiting for the next hammer to fall. And the meeting that I just left, that's what we're discussing in that meeting also with OHA is, how can we really predict for the future when we don't know what's going to happen in 10 minutes? At this point in time, Paul, I think the action is appropriate at this point in time. I don't see, as you stated, Paul, any risk in stepping forward with this action. So I'm ready to vote.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Well, if there aren't any more questions, why don't we go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to approve implementation chapter of the CFEC report to the MPC.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Climate Friendly Equitable Communities implementation chapter as provided.
The motion's been made by Councilor Blackwell, who's Vice Chair of the MPC. Is there a second?
I second it. Seconded
by Mayor Van Gordon. Again, I can't see the whole screen here, so we'll do it the inverse way. And does anyone oppose the adoption of this? And if you do, please verbally speak up. Okay, I'm hearing none. Motion passes unanimously. Is there anything else you need from us on this issue?
Kelly, did you want to run through those post-adoption action items just so everyone's aware?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think we need anything else from MPC, but just to let you know what we'll be working on to make sure that this gets submitted on time. LCOG will work to integrate the chapter as written, and it's in your packet, into our current Central Lane scenario plan. So it looks like one seamless document, and submit that to DLCD by June 30th at the end of this month. And then DLCD there's certain timelines around this, but they have through the summer basically to review and approve. And then that will kickstart us into implementation and the opportunity for jurisdictions to adopt through their TSP updates, transportation system plan updates, and then move into minor and major reports in upcoming years.
Very good.
Thank you for your good questions and support of this for the past year. We feel like it's been a really great project, and thanks to the Parametrics team for keeping us all in line here.
Thank you very much for the presentation and your work on this. So with that, I think we're closing out on item 7. Next is next steps and agenda build, and I'll turn this back to Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to remind everybody that we will be meeting on July 3rd and again in August. We will need to hold those meetings in order to keep the RTP adoption on track for this fall. Otherwise, that's all for today.
Very good. Is there anything, well, you see our upcoming meetings are on July 3rd and August 7th. One thing I want to float out, since we're running low on time, let's not discuss it today, but I'm interested to know if MPC members are interested in holding at least some of these meetings in person as opposed to always doing them virtually. So anyhow, maybe we could make this, Paul, as an agenda item to discuss at the next MPC meeting so we can get a little more detail into it. But I just think it's good to be able to see each other face to face periodically, if not all the time. So with that, if there's nothing else to come before the MPC, and a last call for hands that people want to speak, I'm not seeing any. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.